Hello, denizens of the internet. Your network executive here, still recovering from cataract surgery. So, as of this writing, YouTube is inundated with reviews and commentary surrounding the Indiana Jones movie. Everyone but me. I don't care. So, I was thinking about counter-programming, as they used to say in network television. What is my favorite interest? Comedy, of course. And what are we lacking these days? Comedy, of course. Oh, I'm trying my best. I cannot recall a worse era for comedy than what we are experiencing now. So join me. Let's discuss this together. First of all, I have to say that the internet is not lacking for comedy. There isn't a day that goes by that my wife does not tilt her iPad towards me, forcing me to pretend that I'm interested in what she's showing me. That would indicate to me that people are still interested in making people laugh, and people continue to want a good laugh. But where are the funny movies, the professional experiences? It seems to me there is much less of it around, don't you think? The cornerstone of comedy is about recounting personal experiences that everyone can relate to. Friends, family, marriage, death, sex. Of course, all of those things provided a different relatable experience back in the 50s. It changed in the 60s. Each decade had its variation, and now we have more online acquaintances than real friends. You're still living with your parent. Men are not getting married. Girls are having a ton of sex, it seems, while 30% of young men haven't had any sex at all, and one guy is breastfeeding on public transit. I have no idea who's going to look back fondly on this era. We don't collectively have much in common, except for the internet and the stuff we do with it. Comedy used to be about family. I talked about that in my Death of Shared Experiences video. Comedy pushed boundaries of acceptable content, but stuff that wasn't very controversial at all a decade ago will get you canceled now in a heartbeat. I'm going to reference, well, speaking of canceled, I'm going to reference Woody Allen a lot because he was one of my heroes. In Everything You Always Wanted to Know About Sex, Woody played in one of the segments a detective searching for a giant rogue breast that was milking people to death. I remember him telling a police officer, "Be careful. They always travel in pairs." This was back in '72, and for a young man of 18, that was very titillating. Sex has always been one of those threshold subjects, eliciting giggles and embarrassment. Would everything still get the laughs today? I'm not so sure. We're much more sophisticated today. Now, overweight, semi-naked men festooned with bondage leather and feathers offer their penises to children lining the sidewalks during pride parades. Yeah, I think we are much more sophisticated. Or perhaps we've gotten to the point where real life is more outrageous than anything a comedy could make up. But something has changed. Comedies, while never big box office, were always a staple of the studios. Let's compare the comedies of the 70s to those from 2010 on. The 70s gave us, and bear with me, I'm making a point here, The Computer Wore Tennis Shoes, Doctor in Trouble, MASH, The Out-of-Towners, The Owl and the Pussycat, There's a Girl in My Soup, The 12 Chairs, Start the Revolution Without Me, Which Way to the Front, Dollars, and now for something completely different, The Barefoot Executive, Bananas, Harold and Maude, The Hospital, A New Leaf, Support Your Local Gunfighter, Who is Harry Kellerman, and Why is he saying those terrible things about me, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, Another Nice Mess, Avanti, Everything You Wanted to Know About Sex, Fritz the Cat, The Heartbreak Kid, On the Buses, Pink Flamingos, Play It Again Sam, Up the Chastity Belt, What's Up Doc, Sleeper, Blazing Saddles, Dark Star, The Groove Tube, The Longest Yard, Phantom of the Paradise, Uptown Saturday Night, Young Frankenstein, The
The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes' Smarter Brother, The Apple Dumpling Gang, Love and Death, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, Return of the Pink Panther, Rocky Horror Picture Show, Shampoo, The Sunshine Boys, The Bad News Bears, Car Wash, Chesty Anderson, U.S. Navy, Family Plot, Freaky Friday, The Gumball Rally, Murder by Death, Silent Movie, Silver Streak, Annie Hall, Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo, High Anxiety, Jabberwocky, The Kentucky Fried Movie, The World's Greatest Lover, Oh God, Slapshot, Smokey and the Bandit, Which Way is Up, A Wedding, California Suite, Foul Play, Animal House, Rabbit Test, way before its time, The End, Up in Smoke, Being There, The Frisco Kid, The Jerk, Love at First Bite, Manhattan, Life of Brian, The Muppet Movie, Prisoners of Zenda, Real Life.
Now, from 2010 on, don't worry, the short list is shorter.
Burke and Hare, Casino Jack, Cemetery Junction, Cop Out, Date Night, Death at a Funeral, Dinner for Schmucks, Easy A, Due Date, Get 'em to the Greek, Greenberg, Grown Ups, Hot Tub Time Machine, How Do You Know, Jackass in 3D, Little Fockers, Lottery Ticket, The Other Guys, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, She's Out of My League, Super, The Switch, Arthur, Bad Teacher, Bernie, Bridesmaids, Horrible Bosses, Jack and Jill, Medea's Big Happy Family, 21 Jump Street, The Campaign, The Dictator, The 5-Year Engagement, Men in Black 3, Moonrise Kingdom, Ted, The Heat, Identity Theft, The Incredible Burt Wonderstone, The Internship, R.I.P.D., This Is the End, The To-Do List, We're the Millers, Grand Budapest Hotel, A Haunted House 2, A Million Ways to Die in the West, Neighbors, Ride Along, Trailer Park Boys, What We Do in the Shadows, Hot Pursuit, Paul Bart Mall Cop, Amateur Night, Deadpool, Dirty Grandpa, Ghostbusters 2016, Death of Stalin, Overboard, Bill and Ted Face the Music, Sonic the Hedgehog, King of Staten Island, The Wrong Missy, Free Guy, Hocus Pocus 2, Jackass Forever, My Best Friend's Exorcism,
and that kind of sums things up. Should I have included Thor, Love and Thunder? Of course, comedy is subjective, but I'll bet those of you who remember the 70s wouldn't even consider Shampoo in the same league as the Kentucky Fried Movie, as there are varying degrees of comic intent and intensity. But Shampoo would be considered an all-out comedy today. The difference is that we had MASH and The Out-of-Towners, real Hollywood movies that had genuine comedic elements. Apart from not remembering, not knowing, never seeing a lot of the comedy movies from 2010 on, you can tell that the importance and literacy of comedy overall has diminished, probably because it's hard to do. And while I can appreciate Paul Bart Mall Cop, which I think we need more of, it's no Start the Revolution Without Me. Look at Annie Hall. Who's making comedies like that these days? Is it because we don't want them? Is it because the studios aren't interested? It's true that comedies are risky, do not travel well, and studios want global hits. Is it because the talent has dried up? Is it because the Jews have disappeared? Where are the Jews anyway? Comedy and Jews were a staple for decades in stand-up television and film. The wonderful Mrs. Maisel documented a lot of the stand-up aspects of that connection. There is a cadence, thought process to the Jewish delivery of jokes that makes things, or seems to make things, funnier. If I say, I went to Costco to buy a large screen television and I left with a 12-pack of 60-inch Samsungs, that's just not as funny as saying it like Jackie Mason. I went to Costco to buy a large screen television and I left with a 12-pack of 60-inch Samsungs. That familiar delivery seems to have vanished. There are a lot of young stand-ups who say funny things, clever things, but they don't say them in a funny way. John Mulaney does. The late Ralphie May did. Emo Phillips, of course. Now, none of the aforementioned comics are Jewish. You don't have to be Jewish to be funny, but it helps. Larry David could be the last Jewish oasis on TV. Adam Sandler has taken a detour. We don't have Nora Ephron anymore. For me, because I'm attuned to it, I don't hear that voice much at all around me on TV or films. I miss it. Maybe it's had its time. It had a good run. I would argue that we could use more When Harry Met Sally's and fewer superhero movies with stupid Joss Whedon jokes. Good comedies bring people together in ways other movies don't. When I saw Woody's Sleeper, we spent weeks recounting the jokes, laughing at the 200-year-old Volkswagen Beetle gag that started on its first try, the Orgasmatron, when the cigarette-smoking doctor turned to Miles and said, "You know, years ago people thought these were bad for you." Comedy is also a great vehicle for social commentary. The difference between drama and comedy is that in drama, you don't say the subtext, but in comedy you do. We're not getting comedies like Charlie's Aunt because many of the most memorable comedies started off as Broadway plays, like The Sunshine Boys by prolific writer Neil Simons. All the jokes were worked out in front of many audiences. Now, that isn't to say Talladega Nights or Blades of Glory were not hilariously funny. Damn, I could use more of that now. The recent Jennifer Lawrence movie, No Hard Feelings, was a good attempt at bringing back raunchy comedy. I wished it had done better at the box office, but we still need more comedy, all kinds of comedy, to bring it back to life. No one movie is going to do it. Ghostbusters was a good and bad thing. It proved you could make hundreds of millions on a comedy. And the bad thing was that the studios suddenly wanted only comedies that would make hundreds of millions. The Russians are coming, featuring the wonderful and late Alan Arkin, did not do those numbers, and neither did those wonderful Christopher Guest ensemble pieces. You might ask yourselves, well, where are those funny people? They aren't all dead. No, they are not. But in comedy, you have your time, and then it's over. Either the audience doesn't want what you do anymore, or you're creatively exhausted. We did not need Mel Brooks's History of the World Part 2. Was that on Netflix? It was awful. In fact, we didn't need Part 1 either, though the Moses 15 Commandments gag was historic. We're not lacking actors that can do both drama and comedy. Ben Affleck and Matt Damon were great in Dogma and Good Will Hunting. I do miss the era of Cary Grant comedies, but screwball comedies like Bringing Up Baby, well, they were fun in their time. We won't see those again. The Marx Brothers, I can watch endlessly, but I can't see that coming back anytime soon. And that's fine. Comedy is of its time. No one is going to remake The Jerk. Good comedies generally stay in our collective conscious much longer than dramas. The history of movie comedy is so utterly vast as to be unfathomable. Yet it seems to have almost vanished. In the end, it's a very personal thing. Absolutely someone or a bunch of someones will come along and create a generation of memorable comedy. I just wish they'd hurry up. As I said earlier, comedies are more than just jokes. It's about a shared experience. And if all we can joke about is fast food, phone apps, and trans athletes, then that is pretty thin gruel. Woody Allen said the only things that are funny are death and sex, and watching people perform sex. I know the comment section will be ablaze with your thoughts. Till next time, denizens, be seeing you.